amazing script. It was a beautifully crafted piece of work, and it was filled with love for the original source material, but just offered this character of Caesar was just, on the page, was a beautifully written part with a great arc and a great journey, you know. And I mean, I think both Rupert and myself, one of the things we wanted to do was, I mean, with the other actors who are playing the 8 characters, obviously you have to do a lot of research into, you know, this is kind of 101 stuff that you learn the physicality of how a chimpanzee or an orangutan or a gorilla moves. And I'd already had a lot of experience on that from King Kong and studying primates for King Kong. But actually what was very important for us and for me was to have a touchstone character, like a real example of a chimpanzee that had sort of been through sort of possibly what Caesar might have been through. And there was this character called Oliver who was known as the chimpanzee in the 1970s. He was brought up by carers, by human carers, had incredibly human facial expressions, and people thought he was the progeny of man and ape. And he walked bipedally, completely bipedally. So he'd walk into a room, sit down, you know, pick up a glass, drink, just look around, and you know, you actually felt that the people who surrounded him just said there was something. He was definitely not just ape, you know. So that he became a real touchstone character for us. And you know, obviously I'm playing Caesar through from infancy, through this kind of where he's loved and brought up in a very loving environment with a surrogate father who he believes is his, you know, is his dad basically. Then he reaches a moment of discovery and self-awareness, sort of like a teenage, where he's in free fall. He becomes this. He thinks of himself as a freak, an outsider. He doesn't know what he is anymore. And eventually, as you say, he's thrown into this prison. All the time for Rupert and I, it was the pitching the character was a real challenge. How much to anthropomorphise him? How much to you know, juxtapose kind of ape expressions and behaviour with human behaviour. I mean, we thought a lot about, for instance, I really concentrated on gifted children. Obviously, Caesar has this enhanced intelligence, and you know, children who. You know, who are brilliant at playing the piano or can play concertos when they're 4 years old, you know, or who can do very complicated algebra or mathematical equations when they're 6 years old, and you know, how are they received by their parents and their family and so on, and how you know, when you observe them, what's their behaviour? So it was quite complex. It wasn't, you know, wasn't just sort of a case of mimicking chimp behaviour. You know, it was, we had to very carefully plot an understanding. You know, obviously he doesn't use many words to communicate. He communicates through sign language. Well, how does an enhanced intelligence ape use sign language? Just because he has an enhanced intelligence, does that mean he therefore has to be more human? And you know, is that rather arrogant on our behalf? You know, so it was finding a language for him to communicate with. You know, it sometimes feels like I am doing a lot of tub thumping, and so it's great to get, like there was a fantastic article that James Franco wrote just recently, which was on Deadline, you know, and it was amazing because I think it's one of the first times a fellow actor has really spoken out and said, and you know, at close hand witnessed and experienced the process, and it just means such a lot, you know, to me, that it doesn't feel that I'm evangelising just solely on my own. You know, I just wish that the acting community could, and you know, it eventually will, I'm pretty certain, embrace it as a tool, because it is. I suppose the argument and the debate, it really centres around authorship of performance, and you know, at what point is, if any, is the actor's performance enhanced? I mean, one has to be very accurate about what goes on in these films, and really, in terms of the drama, in terms of the process of acting in these kind of roles, you know, there isn't any difference between you know, a live action performance and a performance captured performance in terms of the acting process and how you embody the character, how you psychologically, you know, embrace the character and choose you know, make the choices for the character and so on, and execute it. So because you're on a set, at the end of the day, you're on a set with another actor, bouncing off what they're giving you and responding to them, and creating something that is emotionally engaging with a director who's crafting the scene, and then the cameras roll, you know, whether it be a live action camera or a performance capture camera, and that moment is sealed, and you know, from then on in post-production, that other set of artistry, you know, the whole visual effects side of things is, you know, it is really what it takes is it extrapolates that performance and should really, if the director is wanting this to be the case, it honours entirely what is being delivered, you know, on set. So you're not drifting away in any sense emotionally or choice-wise or what the actor's given. It is a very different thing to an animation process, and that's the one thing I really would love, you know, actors to understand, is that it is this incredible tool that allows you to play these vast ranges of characters, and you know, and it absolutely adheres to what you're delivering on set. But the fact of the matter is, what is really most important to me is that performance capture is accepted by the acting community, and that we reach a point where, you know, we don't have to discuss the technology anymore, because it's just another method of, you know, transforming as an actor into a role. And if that means, you know, setting a precedent with awards, then that's worth gunning for, because I really do believe that it is acting. And I don't think, for instance, there should be like a separate category, or, you know, people have asked me, do you think there should be a separate sort of acting in the digital realm, or performance capture, character acting awards? And I actually don't believe that that's right. I actually fundamentally believe that what I'm doing is no more than acting, and you know, taking on a role, reading a script, getting excited about it, and executing it with a director and fellow actors.
Have you guys kind of determined, like, how far ahead of time will the sequel explore, or just you personally, what would be the next kind of chapter in Caesar's life would you most want to see explored?
Well, I think it is precisely that moment of, you know, of decision making, of you know, how kind of what I was saying in a way, how much of humankind and humanity and all of the positive things that has. You know, this was never a movie, you know, about saying apes are good, you know, humans are bad, or humans are good and apes are bad. It was always about the difficult grey areas of a species dominating a planet, you know, and you know, I think wherever it goes, and it is in its infancy in terms of, at the moment, in terms of where we're taking the story, but it will certainly have conflict. It will certainly have Caesar having to make decisions about managing, you know, managing his own kind, and also the survivors of the virus, you know, and making sure that they can coexist. I believe that's where it's going.
I mean, it would seem like if you want to get to what someday was the Planet of the Apes kind of civilization that we were initially exposed to, it would almost seem like Caesar would have to impose more humanistic tendencies on the apes, just for them to eventually embrace the idea of, well, we're going to read, and we're going to wear clothes, and we're going to pretty much everything that was stripped from him when he went into the prison. It almost seems like he would have to then start to impose, in a way, is like the only way we're going to survive.
Well, I think yeah, as a matter of survival, I think they will be walking back into, you know, empty houses and you know, and empty homes, and picking it up from there. I think that's exactly right.